to say a quick thank you to all of the ladies and gentlemen from the Bremond Historical Society. They worked their little tails off for this. And so I just want y'all to say thank you to them because I think they put on a really cool event. I hope you like this. But they worked really, really hard. So we're thankful that they did. So, to begin, we are here and we are going to step back in time and y'all are going to meet some people that have been historical figures in Bremond, and some of the things that you're going to hear about, some of the things that they have done. There's a list in your program of them. If you kind of want to follow along with that, that may help you as well. But we will introduce them, and they're going to introduce themselves. But to begin with, just to kind of give you a short little, introduction. So Bremond really is here mostly because of the railroad. I thought it would be really timely if the train came through right about then. Totally blew it for me. I mean, exactly. So, settlements sprung up in these little towns. Whenever the railroad was coming through, then these little settlements sprang up from the workers that were building the railroad. And that's exactly what happened in Bremond. So, Bremond was established in August of 1869, thus this year is the Sesquicentennial, and we're super excited to celebrate that this evening, but then also tomorrow. There is lots of events planned for tomorrow. Before we leave tonight, somebody, is that you, that can tell us kind of what the breakdown for what's tomorrow? Because I know that a lot of you that are going to be here are definitely going to want to not miss that. So we will get to that. But first, to begin, we are going to meet Mr. Burt Combs. He's going to be joining us this evening. He was the first settler in Bremond, a Civil War vet, and he was a surveyor. Mr. Combs, please tell us about yourself.
Good evening. My name is Burt Combs. I was one of the first original settlers in this area. I was born in 1837 in Kentucky. Did we lose it? In 1837. I don't know. Maybe. What am I doing? I know.
You have about 20 feet on that one.
I can probably. So anyway, a group of us left Kentucky, Tennessee, and came this way. We stopped along the way down on the east and the west side of the Little Brazos River. Most of them stayed. They settled in a community there called Blue Ridge. I went further south, and I came here. There's a vast, wide open prairie. Nothing was here. I kind of set up, surveyed some land, and I acquired a tract of land a little ways west of town, which I homesteaded. And as time went, there were a few people that followed me. Some names that may come to someone's mind were the Campbells, the Bennetts, the Jacksons. This area stayed mostly vacant for a number of years. But as word came down the railroad was coming, people began to come in flocks. People came here, walked whichever way they could, and started constructing some wooden buildings and so forth to house the numerous workers. There were boarding houses, cafes, and also some saloons. There was a huge hotel that was built a little ways west of here. But as the train came and the tracks were laid, this was a little far for people to stay. So the building was somewhat abandoned. But anyway, as the tracks were laid and the town was established, it was given the name Bremond, which is named after Paul Bremond, who was an official with the H&T and C Railroad. And that was in 1869. Anyway, later on, as the train drove, people traveled, tracks laid north, also northwest to Reagan, to Marlin, on to Waco. People began to commute, passengers, cargo was being moved. And the town grew. There were other people came. There were merchants, like the Rumpels, the Bennetts, and so forth. And the town continued to prosper. That was a huge, in the early 1870s, there was a huge influx of immigrants that came this way. They came from Germany, Syria, Lebanon, Ukraine, and Poland. These people brought with them various trades, carpenters, and so forth. But most of them were farmers. And the area expanded out east and west of town. And in that time, there were other areas that kind of settled and became known to some of us. It was called Wooden Wells, Mustang, White Rock, Long Branch, and so forth. As these farmers all came, they began to farm this land, and it became a huge farming community and continued to grow on into the latter 1800s. Anyway, I lived till I was 76 years old. And I passed in 1940. My remains were laid to rest on the old homestead that I had acquired here a few hundred yards behind what the old Bremond High School stood. But I like to say also that high school was, once the town was named, the old high school, or the old hotel, was converted into what was then the Bremond High School. So, in closing, like I said, my remains were laid to rest on the homestead where my daughter, Maud Davis, had resided. Other people will follow me and will share some stories of their journey, how this town came where we are today, celebrating 150 years. Thank y'all, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Combs. So most settlers were people of faith and soon began to get busy building churches. In 1869, the first church established was the First Missionary Baptist Church of Christ at Bremond, whose name was later changed to First Baptist Church. The first Catholic church was constructed in 1878 after the influence of the Polish settlers. You're going to hear about that in a little bit. The First Baptist Church celebrated their 150th last weekend. So, and our next visit that we are going to get is from John Hawkins Rowland. Mr. Rowland.
All right. I am John Hawkins Rowland. Some of you, later on in my life, the last 40 or so years of my life, I was known as Reverend J.H. Rowland. Now, you're going to have to kind of imagine me and really think of me as J.H. Rowland because as I was coming in, there was somebody that said, your profile looks like the preacher that we have at the Baptist church now. So you'll try to realize that my name is J.H. Rowland. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in 1825 in Mississippi. And of course that was before the Civil War. That was a long time ago. And when I turned 22, I met my wife. Her name was Rebecca Turbeville. And we married in 1847. We married in 1847. Unfortunately, 1 year later, she passed away. And so I kind of threw myself into the church that was there in Mississippi. That church was Little Bear Creek Church in Tushomingo County, Mississippi. And so I kind of threw myself into that, and about 3 years after my first wife passed away, that church called me to be set apart for the ministry of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I was called to be a preacher, and that was one of the most wonderful days of my life. That was 1851. And God blessed me with that, and I preached all of my life. But 2 years after I surrendered to preach there in Mississippi, I met another woman who caught my eye. Her name was Agnes Wood. And Agnes and I married in 1853. And we started our ministry together. We had 5 children. We had Rebecca. We had Cornelia. Y'all have trouble remembering your kids' names? We had Rebecca. We had Cornelia. We had Sally. We had Tully. And we had Ned Horace. All right. How would you like to have that name? We had 5 children, and I started pastoring all over the place, and we headed toward Texas. It was a new frontier. It was a new place. It was a wide open place, as already been said. And so we headed for Texas, and I pastored in several churches. But in 1887, I ended up in Bremond as the pastor at what was then the First Missionary Baptist Church of Christ in Bremond. And I was not the first pastor, but I became the pastor in 1887. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time when we came here to Bremond. In fact, it became a place where some of our family stayed. It became a place that I continued to stay in after I finished preaching. Let me tell you about that. Bremond was a wonderful church. It had a wonderful history. One of the things that they told me about that happened before I came, it happened in 1870, but between 1870 and 1875, the Baptists were trying to decide where to settle and to establish the Baptist University. Because it was in independence for many years. As many of you know, it was in independence. And so they decided that they would get pastors and lay people from all over the state to meet and decide where the university was going to be. Well, Bremond was selected as the place where they would meet to make that decision. They came here to Bremond. And there was a committee of 47 people, and they came to Bremond to decide about where to establish Baylor University. They met at least 3 times here and finally decided to establish Baylor University at Waco, where it still is, of course, and Baylor College for Women, or it was Baylor College for Women then. Later it became University of Mary Hardin Baylor in Belton. They decided to have one in Waco and one in Belton. I'm told that on one of the visits, some of the members, as they were traveling together to get here back in 1875, around that time, and back in that day, it was hard to get around, and don't you know, it took a long time for them to travel from different parts of the state to meet for that. But I'm told that they came one time during the year when all of the yellow top flowers are blooming in the fields. You know how they do around Bremond even today? And they saw that green and gold out there in those fields, and they decided, really, this is what I hear, they decided to make Baylor's colors green and gold from those yellow top flowers that are around. So Bremond was a wonderful place, and in fact, my daughter Rebecca. By the way, Rebecca is kind of a family name that's passed down. My first wife, her name was Rebecca. I had a daughter named Rebecca, and I have a great granddaughter who's still living today, Rebecca Parr. And I have a great granddaughter, Carol Boring, who is still living here in Bremond. Is Carol here? No, I was going to give her a kiss. I hadn't seen her in so long. On the cheek. But she married, my daughter Rebecca married John Easley. And by the way, John Easley was the person who built, before they married, he built a house in 1876, and that house is still standing in Bremond. It's the Nana's Bed and Breakfast, Nana's House Bed and Breakfast on the Alley property right out the edge of town there. And it was built in 1876. It was up on the hill, and they moved it down toward the road. I had to look twice when I came by there today. But anyway, John and Rebecca married, and so Rebecca is kind of a family name for us. There was some good times. There were also some bad times in Bremond. I don't know if it's always true in every church, but there's kind of ups and downs. And while I was here, I came in 1887. While I was here, times kind of got hard in the church, and they couldn't really afford to pay me, so I resigned. I said, okay. But we stayed in Bremond because we loved Bremond so much. And I was 62 when I came here, so that's kind of old for a preacher, you know. It's kind of hard for a preacher to find someplace else to go in their 60s. And back in the 1800s, 62 was pretty old. And so we stayed here in Bremond, and I would continue to preach in the church. And in fact, for kind of off and on, and they would try to get people to come. They couldn't get anybody to come to be their pastor. And so I even preached for a whole year without pay. But in 1892, they decided that they would call me, and I was 67 then. They said, we want you to become our pastor again. We want you to be our pastor. And so G.W. Holland stood up in a business meeting, and he said, Brother Rowland, we have raised $300 to pay you for this next year. And I said, I'm not going to come for $300. But if you can raise, by the next business meeting that we have, if you can raise $450, I'll come as your pastor. And so they consented, and I became the pastor again of the Baptist church here in Bremond. I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad that I stood my ground. You know, preachers sometimes don't do that. I stood my ground, and I asked them to, increase that salary to $450. And on the way, when I came in tonight, I was talking to Brother Stan, and he said, I'm sure glad you did that because they're still paying me $450 a year. And I said, and I told him that's better than $300. That's what they were trying to pay me. But anyway. So, I preached for a year and 4 months. I was 69 years old. I took a leave of absence because I was slowing down a little bit. And so I took a leave of absence, and 1 year after my leave of absence, I passed away with fond memories of Bremond. I passed away and went to my reward that God had for me as His preacher.
70s brought many families to Bremond. The Stellbauers and the Schmidts from Germany, the Abrahams, the Somas, the Holloways from Lebanon or Syria. And our next guest that we are going to visit with tonight is Mr. Max Stellbauer. Mr. Stellbauer.
Okay. Now do it. Can you hear me now? Okay. I know I'm supposed to do this in character as Max Stellbauer, But I can tell a way better Max Stellbauer story about him rather than as him. So if that's okay with y'all, I'll tell the Max Stellbauer story. So the program says that Max was born in Germany, but that's really not so. Max's mother and father, Frederick Stellbauer and Christiane Stellbauer, were both born in Prussia and moved to Harris County through Galveston, we guess. And so Max was one of 10 kids. Christiane had several husbands before Frederick, not all at one time. So she had several kids before she and Frederick had kids. So anyway, one of 10 kids. And so he was born in 1860 in Harris County. And in 1871, he came to Bremond with his brother-in-law, Herman Smith, his sister Mary, who was his half-sister, and his brother Henry, who was 5 years younger than he was. And so the story is that Herman Smith was a good merchant, and he opened a grocery store in Bremond. And so both kids, both Max and Henry, worked for him as clerks in the grocery store. And so a lot of the years we really don't know what happened, but as my oldest son says, who does a lot of this research, Deadwood in South Dakota didn't have anything on Bremond. So a newspaper account, when Max was about 20 years old, working in the grocery store for Herman, a customer came in one day who was very unruly, very surly, kind of got in their face, as we'd say now. And so Max pulled a pistol out from behind the counter, pointed it at him and said, "I want you to leave." And so the man did it, but as he was leaving, he said, "I'm going to go find my pistol." And so he went outside, and Max decided, well, if he's going to get his pistol, I better go find a sheriff or somebody, Gerald, to arrest this guy before something bad happens. And so he goes outside and he starts looking for somebody to arrest. The man's name is Bill Moore. To arrest Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore standing on the other side of the street cussing at him and saying all kind of bad things. And so they meet in the street, and Mr. Moore never did find a pistol, we don't think, but he had his hands in his pocket. So he lunged at my great-uncle Max, and my great-uncle Max shot him in the face and killed him. Deadwood don't have anything on Bremond. So the newspaper account of this occurrence says that Max was an outstanding, upstanding, prosperous, hard-working citizen. He was arrested, got out on bail for $250, which I'm guessing was lots of money back in 1880 when this would have happened. But there's never anything about a trial, so I'm guessing somebody said, well, that was self-defense and you're okay. And so after this, Max made money some way and became a property owner in downtown Bremond. And in 1894, he bought the building that you all know and frequent now as the Dry Bean. And so he was, in that year, he was a saloon keeper, and he was also the justice of the peace. It went together. In 1893, prior to buying the saloon, he married his wife named Annie Marstand, and they had 3 children. William Jennings, isn't that a nice name? Stellbauer, known as Bill. Max Armand Stellbauer, and then he had a daughter named Vivian. And so he was an upstanding citizen, saloon owner, JP, until the night of January 20th, 1900. And so the account of that night was that he and a good friend of his named M.P. Long. Are there anybody here related to M.P. Long? Nobody. Okay. So the night of January 20th, The accounts were that shots rang out about 11 or 12 o'clock at night around a hotel called the Cottage Hotels. And so the constable at that time, his name was Mr. Love, Constable Love, heard the shots, ran towards it, ran into MP Long, and MP Long had been shot, and MP Long had a gash on his head from a pistol whipping, and he said, "MP, what's wrong?" And he said, "Max Stelbauer shot me." And so they go back to, and MP was, they were good friends, supposedly, and he was a druggist in Bremond. And so they went back towards the hotel, and the constable, Mr. Love, found Max Stelbauer had been shot 3 times and was dying. And so the accounts are that Max and MP both shot each other 5 times. And obviously Mr. Long was a much better shot than Max because Max died that night. And Mr. Long was arraigned for his murder, and he went to trial in Franklin and Robertson County, and a jury of his peers found him not guilty, that it was self-defense. So if there's anybody here that really knows Mr. Long, it'd be great to know what these good friends were fighting about at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Maybe they had too much to drink, I don't know. Or maybe it was a card game, or maybe. So after he died, his wife Annie and their 2 sons moved to Houston, and his daughter Vivian, was born in April after he had already passed away. And so both of the boys, in a historical context, were good athletes, and Bill played professional baseball for the Philadelphia Athletics. So Deadwood don't have anything on Bremond. And so thank you for the Historical Society to do that for us to do that research. And my son Matt, he's an expert researcher. So thank you.
Okay, so we are going to move right along, and I'm going to tell you that John Coleman Roberts and Mary Louisa Walker were married in Pennsylvania in 1869 and moved to Bremond after living a short time in Sterling, which is no longer around. Mr. Roberts had met Miss Walker at the Virginia hospital where she was a nurse when he was recuperating from the amputation of his arm, injuries that he had received whenever he was in the Civil War. I was having a discussion with Tony Baxter today, and if she was here, she would tell you that she's going to be writing a play about Mary Louisa, who you're going to meet in just a minute because she's very interesting. So, yeah.
Some of you may know me. I'm Mary Louisa Walker, and I live in that big house south of town. You know where I'm talking about? It was a fine house. It is a fine house that my husband, Mr. Roberts, built for me in 1870. It has a broad front porch, and I sit there and I watch the trains go by, and there's a lot of them. You may know that Mr. Roberts and I took the people who came from Poland, we took them under our wing. And we celebrated Mass in our living room often with Father Bussant, who was French, and who came to minister to the people here in Bremond. You may know those things about me, that I was just an ordinary matron with children living in a little frontier kind of wild town, judging from what Max Stelbauer told us. But there are some things you may not know about me. I was born Mary Louise Walker in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. So you might ask, how did I make it to Bremond? I was attending a school for teachers in Baltimore, Maryland, when the Civil War broke out, or, as we like to say, the War of Northern Aggression. My classmates, my friends, were almost all from the South. And though I didn't know much about the South, I'd never traveled into the South, beyond Baltimore, I heard stories about the glorious South and the wonderful cause that those young men were fighting for, and somehow they persuaded me to join their cause. I decided to volunteer, and I volunteered in a hospital in Richmond, Virginia, and as Leah said, that's where I met my future husband, Mr. Roberts, who was recuperating from wounds suffered during the Civil War. But there's a lot that goes on before that. I wanted to continue to volunteer for the cause, and someone approached me and asked me if I thought I could go to Canada and ask for money and supplies and break the blockade in Galveston so that I could bring supplies, medical supplies, money, maybe guns, through the port of Galveston. Those are some things maybe you don't know about me. So I traveled in a boat to Canada. Along the way, we were shot at by northern troops. There was a bad storm that damaged our boat, but we made it to Montreal, and I got the money and the supplies that I asked for. By then, the rivers had frozen, and I had to take those supplies on the St. Lawrence River by sled down south until I could get on a boat. I had to go to Cuba on a boat, and when I got to Cuba, I had to find someone who would take me to Galveston with my supplies through the blockade. I finally persuaded a sea captain with a little money to take me to Galveston. And so we went on our journey from Cuba to Galveston, not knowing exactly how we were going to get through the blockade as we got closer to Galveston. But then we hit upon an idea. We made everybody, all the crew members, go down below, and I dressed all in white, and the captain and the co-captain dressed all in white, and our ship happened to be small and looked like a pleasure yacht, and so we sailed just as casually as you please through the port of Galveston, past northern boats, as if we were just yachting on a pleasant Sunday afternoon. So I got into Galveston, and I decided to stay. And I began to be a nurse at some of the hospitals in Galveston. And I reconnected with Mr. Roberts, but also Mr. Foster, who was another gentleman from Texas, and he lived in Port Sullivan. Do you know where Port Sullivan is? Down the Brazos a ways? Yes, well, he lived in Port Sullivan. And so I would go often to visit Mr. Foster and Mr. Roberts, who was living in Port Sullivan at the same time. At this time, well, you might, I was a little worried. I was getting a little long in the tooth at this point. So, Mr. Roberts proposed, and in 1869 we were married, and in 1870 we moved to Bremond, and he built the house that I was telling you about south of town. We raised our family. We became longtime supporters and members of the community of Bremond. Thank you.
Alrighty, so our next visitors are going to be from the Bartulas. They were from Polish Austria and migrated through Galveston in 1873. They eventually made their way to Bremond in 1875 and were instrumental in encouraging other Poles to come to America and specifically to Bremond. We are so glad you are here.
Niech będzie pochwalony Jezus Chrystus. Witam serdecznie dzisiaj. Mój Józef Bartuła, mój żona jest... Co to? Pani Katarzyna Pandkiewicz from home. And we have 5 sons. I'm so proud of my 5 sons. I had a beautiful, beautiful speech to tell you today, but my wife, she said no good. No good. She didn't like, she made me something new. My sons, beautiful sons. Pan Stanisław, Pan Wiesław, yeah, Pan Mieczysław. Nah, these are good Polish names. Pan Bronisław and Czesław. Nie rozumie? A tak niedobre, to szkoda. Słuchaj, we left our hometown. Remember, there was no Poland at that time, but we left in 1873. And we left on 1st of May, and it took us a couple of weeks to get here.
No, it took 2 months.
2 months.
How many kids I have?
Beach.
Each 5. 5. I had 5 kids on the boat for 2 months. Come on. What else did you do?
We went to New Waverly. And then we stayed there just a few months, and we heard something about Bremond and the John Roberts place, and he sort of invited us to come. But that wasn't good enough for Jonah. No.
Yeah, because.
She went to Calvert.
Let's back it up a little bit in New Waverly. They put us up there in the middle of the prairie. The weeds were this tall. No house. We had to dig.
Underground.
Yes. And then we used the big sticks and weeds as part of our roof for the dug in. But then again, all between them weeds, how many rattlesnakes do we find? One right after another, rattlesnakes to scare the crap out of me. Did it scare you too?
Oh, it scared me so much. We lost Władysław and Mieczysław.
Right, we lost 3 kids. 3 kids then.
We lost 2 in New Waverly, and when we came to Calvert, can I talk about Calvert now? We lost Czesław.
Czesław is what? Czesław? Is Chester? Chester? No?
So we finally came to Bremond.
Yeah.
Funny, we were first Polish people to arrive.
And you know why we came here? Because you got a job. And you know who you work for? Remember that one? Mr. Roberts. He let you work on his
2
plantation.
years I worked for this man.
On the plantation. And then you ended up writing to all your little friends up there in Poland. Come on down, we got a job for you. Come on down. 50 families came. 50. You did good. You did good. And you know what them 50 people did? 50 families? They built the downtown Bremond. They had a saloon, one right after another. They made money. And then they built grocery stores, dry goods stores. They're still there.
And beer joints.
And more beer joints. I don't know about that.
And we had no priest.
Yeah, we had no priest.
No parish. No kościoła.
No church. No church. Nothing.
So we finally, we talk, and we bring money together, and we invite a priest from my parish, from close to Yasło. We pay his way to come to Bremond. Now he's provost.
What?
Pastor.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Too long in America.
Yeah, I know America. That marriage did something to me.
Ale ładne dziewczynka, wish. This is from Grandma, from Busha.
Yeah, this one is.
This is bardzo
Busha.
ładne. From her wedding, when they took the veil off, they put this old schmata on top of her head.
Yeah, but it still fits.
This woman, I tell you, Suhai, listen to me. This woman, I need help in the fields, plowing, picking, cotton, dock. This woman, all day long, iron clothes.
No.
Iron clothes.
5 kids. 5 kids.
Well, but remember, we lost.
Yeah, but we had some more after that. I don't know about that, Papa.
We first Polish child in Bremond, and we called him Yusuf.
That's Joseph. Joseph?
So, and afterwards we have so many Polish people come.
I know, all kinds of big names, so ooh, the names alone.
Oh yeah. Sometimes I don't even recognize them because they weren't like that back in my village. My village, we have short little names like Bartula.
No, that name was long first.
But our first people that passed away, Polish people that passed away, since we had no church, we had no cemetery, we buried them by Yusuf Zababa's place, way out there, about 2-3 miles from here.
Yeah, but back it up, we did get about $350, didn't we?
Well, that's to make the first church.
Yeah, but that wasn't enough.
I know.
Yeah, but Mr. Roberts kicked in some money.
Mr. Roberts put in, the Pentecostals put in, the Baptists put in, all the other religions.
All them Americans.
Oh yeah, they helped us out a whole lot.
A lot.
And we
Are you the same one now?
Maybe I'll become daddy again.
Friendship is good. If you're lucky.
I'm always.
Chiho, means quiet. Chiho, quiet.
So anybody have a question for us?
I don't know, you talk enough. Well, you can't read no more, so. I know.
Throw me out.
I know.
Cisco?
Are you done?
No, I could stay here all night. They like me. Look, we like me.
I don't know, how well do y'all like him? How well? Oh, let the police stay. I'm an American.
Do widzenia, dobranoc, dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you.
That's a hard act to follow. Okay, so J.L. Garwood owned a hotel in Newton Wells and lived his last 50 years in Bremond. He ran for Justice of the Peace in his later years and was elected. He loved to tell everyone, stop by Bremond and be buried by the Justice of the Peace, who is likely the oldest in the United States. He liked 3 months being 100 years old whenever he died, and he's with us tonight.
Rusty. After that introduction, I can go back and sit down. Well, I'm Judge Garwood, and of course, I wasn't born here. I was born in New Jersey. Y'all know where New Jersey is. You go Dallas, take a right, and keep going. So that's where I come from. I come from New Jersey. I was born somewhere around 1869. I was born 3 months before Texas was a republic. I'd go show you how old I was. Well, I grew up as a young man, and I was a little stranger than most kids at that time. I thought I knew everything. Y'all don't have that problem with your kids here, do you? Okay. Well, schools were far and few in between, and I wanted to learn. But they wouldn't give me any books. They wouldn't teach me. So what I did, I found a blueback dictionary. And I started in the front, and I didn't finish until I got to the back. And after I did that, nobody wanted to teach me anything more because they said I was too smart. Well, when I was a little older, moving on in time, around 25, 28. Up there in New Jersey, they had these plants. And they had little green and red fruit or vegetables, we don't know, but they were growing everywhere. And I said, what's that? They said, that's called Jerusalem apples. I'm like, what the heck is that? Oh, they're poison. JL, stay away from them. Don't eat them, they'll kill you. They'll kill you, we tell you. I said, you know, I can do anything. So I grabbed one of those Jerusalem apples, ate it. A family there grabbed me, hog-tied me, threw me in their bedroom, kept me in bed for 3 days because they said I was going to die. Well, I didn't die. And so it was time to leave New Jersey. I left New Jersey through Tennessee, got on a boat, wound up in Galveston. Might have been Cuba like these other people, but I didn't know. Wound up in Galveston, went to Houston for a while, heard about a railroad, heard about this railroad being built over here. And me, knowing a little bit about everything and pretty good politician in my day, I said, hey, railroad people, y'all need somebody to be an engineer. They said, yeah, we need an engineer. Not the one to drive the trains, but the engineer on the roadbed. So I said, what y'all gonna pay me? We don't know. We don't know what's it worth. I said, I won't do it for less than $150 a month. They said, man, lie. Can we afford that? That's more than we make. Well, they needed an engineer, so they hired me. History books are going to show that I set a precedence with $150 a month. All other engineers started out at $150 a month. All right, moving on. I showed them how to lay this railroad. We laid a lot of railroad. Went from one town to another. I got tired of that real quick. Got tired of laying rail. Out in the country doing nothing. Rabbits, dogs, cats, that's it. So I decided I'm going to try my luck in politics. So the state of Texas started electing justice of the peace. So, you know, I know everything, where I had to lose. So I ran. I was elected. I became the justice of the peace. I worked as a justice for many, many years. And over that time, you think I'd have married a lot of people. Guess how many people I married in my 50, 60 years of being a judge? 7. Why 7? They had to convince me that they were going to stay married because I didn't believe in divorces. And when you get a divorce, you got to have a lawyer. We got any lawyers in here? I didn't think too much of those guys. But I was the judge. Well, moving on. Here we're rolling around about 1911. I'm doing a lot of work. I have a relative. Family's moved in. I had a son, JL Jr. He moved back to New York. Don't remember much about my wife. One of those things. Well, I decided that I was going to continue my practice. And one Saturday morning, we got up early back then. Early. I got up, went to see my family, had breakfast, and I had a relative. His name was Dr. Gladue. Dr. Gladue. He was from Louisiana. Any of y'all doctors in here? I didn't think much of them either. But I went ahead and didn't like the way he acted, and I had a double-barrel shotgun. So I took that shotgun and I unloaded both barrels of buckshot into my cousin. Well, of course, he died. His wife took him to Louisiana. They buried him where he needed to be. I made him a popular man because the history books talk about him, but I did everything. He just rode my coattail. Well, I turned myself in. Sheriff Yeswick relatives, I'm sure 150 years ago, locked me up. And funny thing about it, folks, I turned myself in, guilty of sin, never got prosecuted. I was the judge. And this was the beginning of Booger County. All right. Life kept going on, Oops, stepped off the platform. And I'm 97 years old, so I should be, I'm not real stable. But I went ahead and kept working as a judge. I got old in my time. I love to fish. People would ask me, Judge, what do you like more than fishing? I said, more fishing. And I also had a cat. All I remember is that cat about half grown. I don't think it ever grew up. But I'd take my shoes off, and that cat would rub my feet. So I kept the cat. And I went ahead and still practiced law, or being a judge. Never was a lawyer, to be honest with you. But I went ahead and continued my practice way up until I was about really 99 years old. Some folks in Dallas heard about me and everything that I did and what I brought to the Central Texas and Bremond. And they wanted to have a big party, a big recognition for me in Dallas. Well, lo and behold, all those years being judge, all those years of working my butt off, I died 3 months before we had my celebration. But one good thing about it, I died here in Bremond. Now y'all may not know this, but I have a little spot, got a little land out here on 46. You know where all that White Rock Road is over there? I got a little land over there on 46, about a quarter mile out of town. And I live right across the path from where Leonard has his tool shop. And I'm always at home in the Bremond Cemetery. Come by and talk to me. I might talk back to you. Thanks, folks. You've been a great crowd.
We are so excited to have with us Professor Charles Love. Charles Love was a much-loved principal of Love High School. He spent his life educating and being a role model for the children of Bremond. And we are very proud to have Professor Love and some of his students with us tonight.
You can do it. All right.
Good evening. I am Professor Charles Love, principal of Love High School. I have taught in the Bremond area for 53 years, 37 of which were at Love High School. My daily goal was to encourage each student to reach his or her fullest potential, no matter the situation or circumstances. Because of my dedication to the school, I was named in my honor. At one time, Love High School had a faculty of 13 and a student body of 275 who came from the communities of Macedonia, Eloise, Pleasant Street, Long Branch, Hammer, and Rose Hill. Because there was no PA system, each morning began with an assembly as follows.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling at the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the faithful light
Now we have a poem.
And this poem was written by Professor of AKA Ricky Harper. And this is reminiscent of days spent at Love High. Love High, Love High. Thinking about you makes me want to cry. Sitting there next to the highway where I thought you would always stay. That highway that brought students to school each day. Students so black, so bold, so full of soul. I sat in class listening as the train passed, waiting for noontime, which was recess time. Boys on one side, girls on one side, but I still had fun outside. Love high, love high. Thinking about you makes me want to cry. I sat in class, looking out the window at the church next door. A church where there is no recess time. But on Sunday, we have a hallelujah time. While in class, I think about love and hope side by side. I think about God who never leaves our side. I often wonder why they named it Love High. I often wonder why they named it New Hope. I wonder why God took away Love High and left New Hope. I wonder why God placed them side by side. Is it an example of what the world should be? Love and hope for you and me? Was there a purpose for them being side by side? I don't know. You must decide. Love high, love high. Thinking about you makes me want to cry.
We would like to thank the brothers and sisters for taking lead this morning in our assembly. Now you can return to your class.
Something that we all need more of.
I do too.
So, our next to the last, we just have a couple and then we're going to wrap it up. Mr. Herman Yesick was a local boy who made good. He served in World War II and began his campaign for state representative while serving in Europe. And he is here. Mr. Yesick.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm First Lieutenant Herman Yesick, and this is the uniform I was wearing in 1944 when I was elected state representative for Robertson County. Back in the spring of '44, I was in combat in Italy, somewhere between Naples and Rome. And I mailed my application for a place on the ballot in. The Postal Service was doing a great job during the war, but my application that I sent in missed the deadline. But because the election official knew me and the fact that it was postmarked well before the deadline, he accepted it and put my name on the ballot. But at the time, I was serving as an infantry platoon leader in the 351st Regiment of the 88th Infantry Division, and we were busy pushing the Germans out of Italy. But I did have time to buy a stack of 1-cent postcards, and that was my plan to campaign, was mail these postcards to the voters around Bremond. And that's what I did. And on each of these cards, I would write my short stump speech. And it went something like this. I I'm using this card as one way of soliciting your vote. I'm a Robertson County farm boy, 31, single, and a Bremond High School and A&M College graduate. I ask that you give my candidacy careful consideration when casting your ballot in the Democratic primary in July. And if you believe and feel that I am the kind of fella that you are willing to entrust this office to, then give me your vote, and it will be sincerely appreciated. Should I be elected, I will be there to serve. After having the occasion to face the enemy several times, like other Robertson County servicemen had and will before the world conflict is over. The cards were effective. Following the primary election, I was notified by mail that I had defeated the incumbent. But it wasn't until after the November general election that I left Italy and returned to the States. That trip was on a ship that carried meat from here to Europe. But on the return trip, it would carry bodies of servicemen killed in action. It landed in New York around Christmas. And from there, I got on a train and went to Bremond and made it back in time to begin serving in the 49th legislature in Austin, began on January 9, 1945. I was born in Tidwell Prairie. Like a lot of people in Bremond, you weren't born actually in the city of Bremond, you were born somewhere around Bremond. I was born in Tidwell Prairie. And when I went to the one-room school there, but after that, I went to high school in town. In my first couple of years, it was in high school, I'd often ride a brown mule to school. It wasn't a Kawasaki mule, it was a real mule. Named Henry. And when people would see me riding in the rain or into that cold north wind, they'd often comment, that little Herman must sure be serious about getting an education. But his brother, Ted, would downplay that quite a bit and say that wasn't that big a deal because Henry was a real smooth, easy riding mule. And that mule liked going to school because he didn't have to work when he went to school. He just hung around town eating grass. After graduating from high school, Bremond High School in 1933, I took a year off from school before enrolling at A&M in the fall of 1934. I graduated with a degree in horticulture in 1938, and I had the pleasure of knowing some players on the 1939 National Championship football team. And the reason that is significant maybe now is that it may be 80 or 100 years before A&M wins another national championship. Historical reenactors can have good vision. During the 51st legislature, which is 1949, I supported legislation introduced by Representative Dolph Briscoe from Uvalde. That legislation would greatly increase the amount of money dedicated to building farm market roads in Texas. The obvious reason I was for the bill is I was stuck around Bremond too many times. And so roads like White Rock and Long Branch and Wooden Wells needed paving. So I was strongly for the bill. it passed, and it was just what Texas needed at the time. Later, I found out that the sponsor, Mr. Briscoe, made millions off asphalt. My friend Dolph went on to become the biggest single landowner in the state and also governor. Myself, in 1960, 2 years before I ended my 18-year run in the state legislature, I purchased the Bremond Press and Franklin, Texas newspapers. Which didn't have a whole lot to do with making money, but it did provide service to the community, and I enjoyed the work. And I plan to continue putting out the paper as long as I can, and I hope that my family continues to put it out long after I'm gone. Earlier I mentioned being a member of the 88th Infantry Division, called the Blue Devils, and there was another young man from Bremond, also in the 88th Infantry Division, and he came back on that ship, but he came back dead. And that was my cousin, Pete Bashinsky. He's one of the 6 World War II veterans killed in action that are buried at St. Mary Cemetery, Bremond. And he wasn't brought back till a couple years after the war was over, and I was one of the people who had to identify the body. And that stayed with me the rest of my life. And Bremond has been had a lot of people from Bremond serve in the military. And I think this time we should spend a few moments here remembering those service people. In fact, I think it would be appropriate for all veterans to stand and be recognized at this time. So anybody who served in the military, please stand up and be recognized. One more story before I give the microphone up to Mr. Koinski, I think he's next, is that after I served in the legislature for years, I would take my kids with me to Austin, and they'd hang around the Capitol while I was working. And my son George had a hard time understanding how lobbyists work. These lobbyists would take us out to eat at the Night Hawk or some nice place in Austin, and he couldn't understand why I refused to let them pay for our meals. And I just tried to explain to them that, you know, they're trying to get something out of it, and maybe I don't want to give it up. He was trying to explain it to me. And but there was one group of lobbyists that he would give into every year. It was the wholesale beer distributor lobby. He would get 2 cases of Falstaff and 2 cases of Shiner every year, even though he didn't drink. He got it for his wife.
Our very last visitor that is here with us this evening, and then we're done. And we're so grateful that you came to spend your evening with us. We hope that you've had a really great time learning about all this history that is from right here. Mr. Steve, and I'm going to say Okonski, and I don't know if that's wrong, because George said it totally different from that. Mr. Okonski is going to fix me for that. Was a local legend who played Polish music in Bremond.
About Steve Okoinski, I wasn't aware I was supposed to be speaking as Steve Okoinski. So I guess let me think about this, because Steve and I spent a lot of time on his back porch, more so than his wife liked. My name is Steve Okoinski. I was born in Tidwell Prairie.
And I learned very quickly that you could actually make more money playing fiddle than you can picking that damn cotton. Mama says, Stefan, nie roboty, zawsze leży na łóżka. You always laying in the bed, you're not working. I said, Mama, I'm learning new songs for the fiddle. My father played fiddle, I learned from him. My mother, she played guitar. I have sister, she played clarinet. I don't know how you say this English, clarinet. Clarinet, okay. Okay, so I give this a lot of thought for this, and I think I lost count somewhere around maybe 600-700. I figured I played over 800 weddings in Robertson County and family functions. I played for all the families, Polish, mostly Polish. We played for the Americans too, because I learned Bob Wills music. Yes, Bob Wills has very good music. We like him too. So we actually would go and play sometimes all around County. Polish wedding lasts 3 days. 3 days. Start on Piontek, you drink, you play, then Saturday morning you must go to bride's house. You go to the window, and she's not happy. You're looking at her. She's trying to get dressed. You play. Everybody's drinking. The druzhba is the master of ceremonies, and he's always there. He's always there with something to drink, and he's passing it, and we're drinking, and bride, she's trying to get dressed, and it's ugly. So then from there, we get parent blessing, then we go to church. We get married. Yes, we go. We play. People come into church, and then we play. People come out of church. Whole time we play. We play for 3 days straight. Then we go to bride's house. We have big platform, dance floor. We play sometimes until the last person drop. And sometimes that was me. And that's how Karol Bashinsky learned how to play the fiddle. He was no good, see, but I was sleeping. So then they have what they have on Sunday, what they call poprawiny, or some people here they call it the kita. The kita is the tail of a pig. That means the tail end. It's the very last. So we are on Nanijela on Sunday. We are going after the church, of course, and of course after we wake up, we get a little drink, we go again, and then they bring out all the food, and we go all day Sunday. All day. This lasts for 3 days. Well, I did this for many years, and I discovered, you know, I could go play at the Bremond Tavern and make the same amount of money in 4 hours. So then I learned country music. Oh, this is good. So, anyway, I do this for a very long time, and then I decide that things got real bad here. I go to Chicago, and I play with big orchestra in Chicago. I play guitar in orchestra, and I learn how to play violin. You know the difference? I'm going to show you. When I was in Bremond, I played like this, with the wrist down like that. This is old village style. I come back like that. Oh yes, even my wife, she says, "Oh, you're a new man." So I come back, I play for, I don't know, most of my life. I play here, I play there, and I feel very honored to have played for all of your families, so many of you here. I'm speaking on behalf of Steve. If he were here, I know this is exactly how he would feel. He was very honored to play at all of your family reunions and your weddings and your baptisms and all the various functions that he played for all of your families. He was an honorable man, and thank you all for making him a part of your life.